Powered by Streaming Incorporated.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming. We have a nice intimate crowd here tonight for our special presentation. My name is Dave Farrow. I'm the president of the Canadian Club of London, and we appreciate you being here tonight. We have a special presentation with our London mayor, where we're going to hear about his priorities for the city and his thoughts about London, but we're also going to hear a little bit about the man himself. Get to know Mayor Morgan the best we can in the short time we have together here. For those unaware of what the Canadian Club of London is, we're a nonprofit organization and we celebrate the achievements of Canadians. That's our mandate. It's that simple. We do it through a series of events that feature speakers throughout the year. We're just planning our next season now, as a matter of fact. It starts in September, and we hope to do all of our events live next year, which is going to be terrific. It's our 117th consecutive year running this nonprofit organization. I haven't been here for all of them, only the last few, but it's one of Canada's longest running organizations of this type, and I'm very proud to be a part of it. As I said, we're busy planning next year's session or sessions, and memberships are already available through our website. CanadianClubOfLondon.com is where you'll find all the information. Before we get into our sponsors and hear from them, I want to quickly acknowledge that Huron University is located on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabeg, Haudenosaunee, the Napawak, and the Attawandaron peoples on lands connected with the London Township and Sombra Treaties of 1796 and the Dish with One Spoon Covenant Wampum. This land continues to be home to diverse Indigenous peoples whom we recognize as contemporary stewards of the land and vital contributors to our society. Our official season sponsor and exclusive educational sponsor is Huron University. And joining us to provide a welcome is Dr. Kate Graham. Dr. Graham?
Well, thank you very much, and welcome to each of you to Huron. My name is Kate. I'm delighted to be here on behalf of Huron this evening to welcome you to our campus. I will say, if you were here a few weeks ago, it is hopping during the school year. There are students everywhere. It's busy, it's hectic, it's a ton of fun. And of course, during the summer term, it's much more quiet and peaceful. So I hope you're enjoying the campus, even with the construction and in one of our peaceful times. Here at Huron, we are all about leading with heart. You saw it on the signs, you see it when you're coming in here. It's not just a motto for us. We are, and we graduate leaders with heart who understand that the privilege of an education at a place like this comes with an obligation to do good in the world, which is part of why I think this is such a fabulous partnership with the Canadian Club, the range of speakers that you have, and certainly the conversation we'll be having tonight with our mayor, His Worship Josh Morgan. I'm sure we'll touch on many issues from health and homelessness in our city to how we address affordable housing and other crises. And so we're delighted to be providing a venue this evening for that discussion. So we're delighted to have this partnership with the Canadian Club. We hope it continues on. And once again, on behalf of Huron, thank you very much for being here, for being a part of the conversation, and for enjoying our campus tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Graham. Another sponsor of today's event is Harrison Pensa, a full-service law firm here in London. And here's Dan Reason. Dan, come on up.
Well, thank you, Dave. As Dave said, I'm a partner at Harrison Pensa, and I'm here to bring you greetings from our firm. Hello. First, I'd like to thank Dave and his team at Canadian Club to allowing us to co-sponsor tonight's guest speaker, Mayor Josh Morgan. We're looking forward to this. At Harrison Pensa, we're proud to be community members, and in particular, to support Canadian Club with all the important issues that they educate us about. All employees at Harrison Pensa, whether they're staff, clerks, students, or lawyers, are proud to play a leadership role. In exemplifying our leadership, we've recently been nominated for an award in the London Chamber of Commerce Annual Business Achievement Awards in the large business category. We're proud to be nominated, along with other vibrant London businesses, including but not limited to Ellis Dawn. And they're the guys that caused all the dust to get on your shoes walking across the parking lot. Additionally, earlier today, we were recognized as a top Ontario regional law firm by the Canadian Lawyer magazine. Recognition focuses on legal expertise, service excellence, and knowledge sharing and access to services. Suffice it to say, London attracts and retains quality people in a legal services space, not only at Harrison Pensa, but also at other notable professional service firms that play similar roles in the city. In preparation for this brief introduction, I came across a newspaper article from last month's Western Gazette. In that article, Mayor Morgan was quoted as saying the following: "I want to reach out to students and encourage as many to stay as possible. We are one of the fastest growing economies in the country and need talent from the university and colleges to stay here and contribute to the many jobs that are coming." Mayor Morgan also said, "Whether you want to be here for 4 years, 6, 10, or the rest of your life, we need your talent, intelligence, and perspective to help truly build a great city." Well, if he's not here, he's somewhere. Mayor Morgan, well, we have embraced this philosophy in our firm's hiring practices. The majority of our lawyers, clerks, and staff are originally from London and stayed or came here because of all the opportunities that London provides. As a current example, I took a look at the statistics from our newest hires, our newest people at the firm. Those are the summer law students and the co-op students. For this summer, we've hired 7 law students, 5 were raised in London, and 1 each from St. Thomas and Dorchester. Likewise, we've hired 7 co-op students, 6 from Fanshawe and 1 joining us from Niagara College. So Mayor Morgan, we understand the importance of building from within, hiring good people, giving them good work environments, treating them well, and growing our community. We look forward to being part of the fulfillment of your mandate. We are here for the long haul. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. And one more sponsor, the Forest City Film Festival, also sponsoring today's event, and Dorothy Downs is here. Hi, Dorothy.
Thanks so much, Dave. So, as the Executive Director of the Forest City Film Festival, I am really honored to have the opportunity to be here at this talk and introduce a leader who has been really instrumental in fostering the growth and vibrancy of our city's cultural landscape. So as I've built the Forest City Film Festival over the last 8 years, I've watched the beginning of a renaissance in our city. There is new energetic leadership at many organizations in London, including the London Arts Council, Downtown London, the Chamber of Commerce, the Grand Theatre, Museum London, and the list goes on. The LEDC has been funded by the city to open a very, very successful film office. Downtown London has been renovated and looks amazing. The arts and business organizations are working together like never before in this city, as culture is being embraced as being essential to a healthy, vibrant city. It's been a great time to build a film festival over these last 8 years, a film festival that London is taking pride in and the whole country is paying attention to. It's no coincidence that Josh Morgan has been a very active part of this whole trajectory of the city as a very active city councillor throughout this whole time. He recognizes that the film industry not only brings economic benefits to our city, but also acts as a catalyst for meaningful conversation and social progress. So the Film Festival is very, very happy to be supporting this discussion with this new mayor who has already done so much for this city. I hope you guys all enjoy the talk. Back to you, Dave.
Thank you. Okay, let's get on with the session. I want to introduce you to today's host. Daryl Newcomb is from CTV News here in London. He primarily covers the City Hall beat, and I got this from your website, Daryl. It says, in your spare time, you enjoy traveling, reading about science and military history, and you enjoy doing home renovations.
I do.
You enjoy doing home renovations?
I actually do, just don't tell the building department.
Daryl, over to you for tonight's session.
Excellent. I'm joined by Mayor Josh Morgan. Josh, come on out. And Tonight I figured we would begin by kind of getting a little bit to know more about Josh. You know, he's spent a good chunk of last year campaigning for mayor, and we learned a lot about his positions on issues, but maybe a little more about Josh himself as a father, as a Londoner, as I like to say, a Londoner by choice. Neither of us were born here. I think I'd like to start by asking a little bit, though, becoming mayor. Becoming mayor is a big choice for a family, for yourself, for a career. Who inspired you to do this? What was it that made you want to make that leap?
Yeah, so I don't know if it was any one individual that inspired me to do the leap to mayor. I think once you become a councillor, you start to think about the way you're contributing and how you could continue to contribute. And I think, I know Kate would tell you, politics is all about timing, opportunity, and seeing what's ahead of you and the way you can contribute. So I would say probably the question that I would go back to is like, how did I even get involved in politics in the first place? And that would have been through my experience right here on Western's campus. I know this is Huron, but I worked, studied, and was a student for many years on main campus at Western. And when I arrived in residence in Alumni House out at the front gates, we had our floor, and they said, you should be the floor rep. And I was like, I don't know what that is, but sure, I'll be the floor rep, which meant I had to be on this thing called the Residence Council. And I actually quite enjoyed representing, my floor on some issues which were not complex, but you get to be on the Residence Council. I said, this is great. Maybe I'll do whatever the next thing is. So I was part of this thing called the Social Science faculty, and I said, well, I'll run for president. I don't know anything about the council. I'm not sure what they're doing, but it seems to me like I should as a student, so I'm going to run on this platform of saying, I'm going to figure out what they do. They clearly take these $50 a month from us, and then I'm going to communicate a lot better with the students about what we do and get you more involved. And so I ran for president just out of nowhere, and I won that election by 12 votes, which was very exciting for me, less exciting for the person who I was running against, who I didn't know very well at the time, but actually became very good friends with later. And when I got on this social science faculty council, actually had the opportunity to make some tremendous change and met some really dynamic people on that council, and I'll come back to that in a sec. But I got to be on the USC, which was the student government for the university as the whole. And then from there, there was a bit of path dependency. I liked helping people. I liked representing people. I liked getting tossed a problem and then having the opportunity and the influence to actually try to solve it, while all at the same time learning. And so, I think it was my experience in those early days of university that caused me to get a desire and want to use politics as a way of helping people and doing good and shaping the environment that we're around. Now, interesting thing about that first Social Science Students Council, I was the president, and my political science rep was Paul Hong, who is now the commander of HMCS Prevost. And so we were at an event the other day, and we were just talking 20 years ago, we were both on the same student council, and now I'm the mayor, and you're the commander of our local naval reserve, which is kind of a neat path to have seen evolve. Yeah.
Talk to me as well. I know that, as we were saying, we're both Londoners by choice. What was it that brought you to London? Was it because I know you grew up rural, just outside of London, but what was it that made you come here after maybe spending a little bit of time in the GTA?
Yeah, so I actually went for the GTA piece. Rather than finish my OAC year of high school, I wanted to get away, so I went to Sheridan College for visual arts, and realized that was a passion that I had, but not something that I'd make a career from. So I actually went back to high school, all my friends having left, and finished that OAC year. Then I applied to and got into Queen's, Carleton, and Western. And I picked Western because it was about the right distance away. I'm the first person to have ever gone to university in my family, and so I thought it was far enough that I could still get home to steal some groceries and do some laundry, but far enough away that my parents couldn't surprise visit me, which was important to me. And so I went to Western, and I took a general first year. I didn't know exactly what I'd fall into, but I ended up falling into political science and economics, and did a combined honors degree in that space. But it was really, Western seemed like the right university, the right distance away from home, with the right offerings that would let me explore kind of what I wanted to do next. And I really liked that general first year that was available, because it gave me the opportunity to take a bunch of courses and then figure out like where I actually wanted to land. And in that first year, I took, not just economics and political science, but I took like film. I heard the introduction about filming. I took a film course, took astronomy, took some science courses, and really kind of branched out very widely. But I came here for university. So we have all this talk about how do we get people to stay. I was like, well, I came and I stayed, and oddly, I'm mayor.
You're an example.
Other people should stay. They
Yeah.
could be mayor, maybe. But really, during my time here, I kind of fell in love with the city and all it had to offer, and realized that this was the place where I was probably going to stay.
One of the other things in your background I know, and I think probably not a lot of other people know, is visual arts. You are very much into painting, photography, things like that. Talk to me a little bit about that. Is that something that you explored while you were here as a student, or is that something that you started into at a different time?
Yeah, so when I went to Oakville, I went to Sheridan College that year. I wanted to get away, and I took essentially an art fundamentals course. At the time, I thought I wanted to do animation because everybody did it at that time. It was, the mid-1990s, and Sheridan was at the center of kind of the emergence of animation creativity here in Canada. And so I said, well, I don't know if I'm talented enough to do that sort of thing. So I took this general art course, which was drawing, painting, sculpting, glass blowing, photography, and it was great. I loved it, and I loved the variety of it. There were some parts that I thought, I'm not really good at this piece, but the other parts that I really enjoyed. But what I realized there is, I liked doing art for me, and I liked doing it as an outlet for creativity. For those who know me, I sometimes I'm very boring at council because I like the corporate services committee and the finance and the budget, but I have this artistic side which I don't really let out very often because I find it very personal. It's like stuff that I enjoy doing. So with my kids, we do a lot of crafts and school projects together and those sorts of things. I have a ton of art that I still have from Sheridan in the basement. I would say I don't think it's very good, but I really enjoyed doing it. So it doesn't really matter if it was good. It was about the creative outlet, and so I still do that today. In fact, during my 2018 election campaign, one of the fundraisers I did was a paint night where I was the artist, and we sold tickets and we filled the room, and I taught everybody how to paint a painting, and that was really fun. So that was one of the few times that I kind of turned what I feel is like a private interest into something that I was a little more public with.
And it's funny, the only way I really found out about that was during the pandemic, when all of a sudden I was having to interview you as a ward councillor or chairperson of committees, and you were Zooming from home, and I was like, oh, what's that piece of art behind you, and what is that? And that's kind of how I found out. So yeah. Speak to me a little bit as well. We're going to let people a little later on ask some questions, but I'm kind of curious.
Can I just say on that?
Yeah.
The art behind me was something that my daughter McKenna and I did together at Four Cats Art Studio in Byron. So it was a really cool piece of work that was something that we worked on together, and so we hung it prominently. And the other thing we do with our kids, because I think creativity is important, is in our kitchen, we put up, I put up oddly I'm kind of handy, which don't tell anybody because I don't have time to be handy, but we put up some curtain rods, just thin curtain rods, and then we hung clips from them. And so as our kids over the years did art projects for school, they would hang in the kitchen, and then we would rotate them through. So when they brought them home, we didn't just want to put them in a box and then secretly recycle them when they're not looking. We wanted to hang them so that they could see, you put effort into this. This is meaningful to us, and we put it on the wall for display. And to this day, we rotate through this wall when the kids bring something home that is artistic. It goes up in the kitchen on the two little curtain rods that hang the art, and they see it every day. So
I think you rotated one time when we did an interview. You were like, "Oh, I think one of my daughters wants her art to be on TV."
she did,
so,
yes, yeah, from
yes.
the pandemic, because that was in the background. In fact,
Yes.
that is the background shot for many things.
As I was saying, we're going to give the audience a chance a little later to ask questions of you, but I'm kind of curious, what issue that's occurring in London right now that crosses your desk do you think the media, myself and others, are not talking about enough? What do we need to be focusing on that maybe the media attention, the spotlight is not currently on?
That's a great question.
Be kind.
I will be, because I'm actually not going to say that. I'm not going to say you're not. I'm not going to say something that is council related, because I think that the way that the media has evolved over time, like there's this drive for the attention and the clicks and the stories rising to the top, and what we miss in that, in the drama and the excitement of the things that happen in the city, is I think we miss some really good, like, human interest stories, right? Like, I remember, like, they're still done, but I think if there's something missing, it's the scope of activity that is happening at the ground level in our communities. Having been the president of a local Optimist Club and involved in it for many years, there are so many phenomenal things happening that are so impactful on parts of our city that maybe like fly under the radar, and every once in a while one of those bubbles up and you see a story on it. But like if there was something I would say you could cover more that would be local news about our city, it would be like actively seeking out the really neat grassroots neighborhood work that is being done by, and for the most part, volunteers, youth, and others in our community that I think really shapes the character of our community more so than the stories about a car accident or a fire or those other things that are all very interesting. But I think there's been lots of car accidents. There's always going to be a fire. Those ways that community organizations and groups shape our community are the things that I think really last and really validate the work that they're doing. So not that I could be the news director, but my answer in the short would be more human interest stories about grassroots Londoners doing really neat things.
Speak to me. There was a story that has gotten a lot of attention this week and last week, and it's about London was ranked in a survey that we're the most unhappy. I see nods, but everybody's smiling. I don't know. We're supposed to be the most unhappy city in Canada, I believe. What do you make of that? Because we're also the city most people are moving to.
Yeah, it kind of doesn't make sense, does it? So I'll try to be as kind as possible. So the first thing is there are companies who do these surveys, and the benefit of doing them is lots of people do media stories on what's the unhappy city, and every one of them mentions the company that did the survey. So it's great to do that, but I think that there's a motivation here to get a name out. That doesn't mean the survey is invalid, but I think I always look at the underlying motivations of why is this even being done. But me, with the boring side of me, I looked at the methodology of the survey. This is probably my academic side. And like, honestly, if you look at the methodology of a survey and you say, I'm the mayor, I'm going to find out why people aren't happy, and then I'm going to take some actions to fix it. I cannot figure that out from the methodology of their survey because they do not actually show you what is driving the numbers. And in some cases, some of the things in the methodology are things we have absolutely no control over, like weather, right? Days of precipitation, days of snowfall. Well, I don't even know how they use that, because I know in Whistler, probably days of snowfall is something that makes you very happy, right? In London, maybe some people like it, some people don't. So, there's challenges to like how these surveys are done. At the end of the day, though, I think it's an opportunity for us to say, we have challenges, and those reflect in the opinions people give. So I'm not saying throw the whole survey out, but it is, it's a renewed call to action. Jokingly, a couple days later, I was volunteering at McDonald's on McHappy Day, so I literally was trying to make people happy, one person at a time. So maybe the survey is a little bit better now. Maybe we've moved up a spot or two. But I actually got a lot of people who gave feedback to that, saying, like, I don't know what this survey is talking about. I think there are great things happening. Yes, we have challenges, but there are really great, phenomenal things happening in our city, and this seems very, out of alignment for me.
How do you decide then, communications-wise, which of these you'll respond to and which ones you don't respond to so as not to fan the flame and give them more life?
Well, when you call, I usually answer, and
That's true.
and I do the
True.
story. So
True.
that's more a question for,
Yeah.
I think, the media. But we do our own satisfaction surveying at the city, and so those are important to me because I know the methodology of those. I know the questions we've asked. I see the data over multiple years of baseline, and I can see where we're trending up and where we're trending down. And so that would be of high value to me in decision making. A one-off survey like this, I think, is interesting. It gets attention. It reminds you that you've got work to do, but like I said, there's not much I can point to in that survey. Like, if you look at Burlington scored very high, and many of the GTA cities scored very high. Well, they have very high average incomes too. So how is average income weighted in the survey across the entire province? Like, it's just so hard to dig into it. So I would say, to answer your question, I would dig into and listen to the components of the surveys where I can really understand the methodology and the baseline and where we're trending, and probably pay not as much attention to the one-offs where it's really hard to figure out, what you could actually do to change, to fix it based on the questions that they asked.
You talk about surveys of Londoners. One of the biggest concerns that has come forward since the start of the pandemic is the downtown, core business districts, Old East Village. What's your vision for these moving forward? I recall you've spoken to this a couple times in your State of the City, your campaign. What's your vision, and when will we start to see this take shape?
Sure. Well, I would say that's probably, one of the toughest questions that I'll have, is because there isn't a single answer to that problem. The challenge is, so the way, I'll give you my perspective on how I saw this. The downtown had challenges. There was a period many years ago where it was the heart of the city, and then through whether it was the building of the malls or other things, the retail atmosphere changed and shifted, and then there was investments in downtown that tried to rejuvenate it, in the Central Library and Budweiser Gardens, and even the academic institutions moving some of their students downtown. And it felt like, before we hit the pandemic, that we were really on this upswing. Like, having been on council since 2014, I really felt like, leading into the late teens, that this is really good. Like, we've got these applications for high density buildings, we've got some vibrancy, we've invested in some infrastructure, we've got a core area action plan. This is great. And then when the pandemic came, it set all of these downtowns that were in resurgence back tremendously, to a state where it is going to be yet another slow climb out of this challenge. So my vision is for us to get back on the trajectory and the path that we were on, and part of that is happening, and that is when you go downtown. And if you can even go up to City Hall. There's a public viewing gallery. Get a counselor if you can't. We are a local counselor to take you up, and you can see the cranes in the sky, right? You can see, and there's an exciting thing about to happen where One London Place is the tallest building in the city, and then if you look kind of over it, there's another building being built, and later this year it will be the tallest building in London. And then if you look over just north of Bud Gardens, there's another building being constructed, and then later it will pass the other building to be the new tallest building in London. And so there's this tremendous investment in our downtown in residential development, which will put hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of people in our downtown core. And so my vision is we need to keep up that momentum. We need to provide as many opportunities for people to live in the core as possible, because the days of us trying to convince thousands of Londoners from the suburbs to come downtown every day and invest is not going to happen in the way that we want. The way to have a self-sufficient, vibrant downtown is to get people to live there, and when it becomes vibrant and you have feet on the street and you have the festivals continuing, people come for those events and those activities. To make it vibrant, though, we have to tackle a couple of things. Homelessness and the challenge of mental health and addictions is concentrated in downtown, and more so the Old East Village, I would say right now. There is a crime element that is concentrated downtown, and through the pandemic we saw it escalate, because with people leaving and less feet on the street, a lot easier to commit crimes without eyes on you. And so the new police chief and his strategy for downtown is a key part of the vision that I have moving forward. And of course, our work on health and homelessness is part of that. So residential development and keeping up the pace there. Maybe some work on commercial to residential conversion, the LEDC and their strategy to try to bring businesses downtown, the new police chief and their strategy on crime, and the opening of the new Foot Patrol office, and our health and homelessness work to support those who are most vulnerable to have a place rather than living on our streets, to have somewhere to go where they get the shelter they need, the security they need, the help they need for whatever challenges they might face, and that, that's going to take time.
You mentioned homelessness. You've been the tip of the spear when it comes to finding the funding from the senior levels of government to fund the whole of community response that the city has developed. It's supposed to be launching. We're supposed to have hubs begin to open before the end of this year. How much pressure are you feeling to get your role in this accomplished and to make sure there's sufficient funding there that this is going to work and have the capacity that we need when, I believe I just read a stat today, the number of people on the homeless by name list that the city keeps has doubled since the start of the pandemic.
Yep. Yeah, there's about 2,000, just over 2,000 people on that list now. And as an assessment of those people on the list, there's about 600 who have very high needs. So there are many people who need a space to live, need a house, can function very, very well. It's an affordability issue. But there are others in that group of 600 that need some sort of supportive housing and guidance and supports, whether it be financial incentives, mental health counseling work, primary health care supports, addiction supports, the variety of things that people face as challenges. So that means our health and homelessness plan is centered around the low barrier hubs that give people that place to access some of those frontline services that are currently providing service in a very unorganized way in many different parts of the downtown with many different focuses. So bringing those into focus and alignment, and then having the supportive housing that goes with it. So that means the pressure on me is to find, the funding for really what is two separate components. One is a capital component for retrofitting whatever buildings we use for hubs or building new hubs ultimately. And the capital component for the housing, which is mainly my focus of work with the federal government, and the operating dollars to support the activities that happen in the hubs, as well as the healthcare-related expenditures for the supportive housing, because really that is a healthcare-related challenge. And so with the provincial government, it's really focused on the ongoing operating dollars. So we've had some success with this so far. When the province invested new dollars in the homelessness prevention program, they bumped the overall funding across the province by 40%. We got about 60 some odd percent more funding in recognition of some of the work and where London plays as a regional center for not just opportunities in healthcare, but also challenges. And so we have some of that funding to work with. We have opportunities at the federal level to access housing accelerator funds and others. And those conversations that I've had with the Prime Minister, the Premier, and key cabinet members are all very, very positive. They understand where their roles are in supporting us. There are existing programs that we can access. We might have to ask for a bit of flexibility. And I think the really good, solid groundwork has been laid for now. What is happening is the secondary conversations directly with the ministries on how to make the actual asks. At the same time, the work is being done with the group on here's how the hubs are actually going to function. What are the populations they're going to serve? What are the types of services that would be embedded in those hubs? What are the models of care that they're going to operate with under, so that there's consistent and high quality services provided that meet a level of standard. And then, of course, down the road, we need to do public consultation on exactly what these look like and where they're going to go, and a couple of other pieces that will happen down the road. So where we are right now is the tables have been formed, the implementation tables. Over the next month or so, they will do that final design on here so that the public has a really good sense on, everybody's probably asking, what actually happens in a hub? What can I expect? Describe to me what this looks like and how it functions. That work is being finalized now, and then we'll be able to have that conversation with the public. And I think that is a great time for public engagement, where we can say, here's how we envision this working. Here are the parameters on what we would do. Here's some of the parameters under which we would locate a hub, like proximity to schools and other things. What do you think? Let's check in. Let's get people to understand how these are positive experiences and how they're going to help. And I will say there's something happening at the Sisters of St. Joseph where they have built something called a hub, but it's really not anything like what we're designing. And so my caution is you cannot think of that as what the hubs will be. First off, there's way too much outside space and there's a little bit of encampment happening around it. Second, it's combining like what is a food service for hundreds and hundreds of people in the same building with a hub space that, really our hubs will be designed to service 25 to 35 people.
And
That's
so
it.
people have a sense.
Yeah.
You're talking now about 602 Queens,
Yes.
which is it's the old Infotech building,
I wish
where
they-
we see a lot of encampment and stuff.
I wish
now
they wouldn't
right
call that a hub because that is
Yeah.
nothing like what our hubs are going to look like.
And that's where I think, some of the comms
Yeah.
need to be looked at because
Yeah.
there is that confusion right now. They see that as a hub, and people presume that may be what's going to
Right.
come to their neighborhood.
Which is why I think our engagement with the public and the information that we start to put out on the comm side in the next little while is really going to be really critical as we ramp that piece up. Because what I want people to do is give feedback on something that like is as close and as accurate as possible on what they can expect, not what they assume or presume a hub is going to be like. And that requires us to do that work to really define the components of the services that are in it so that we can go out with a much clearer picture of what's going on. Now, to get back to your question about funding and timing.
How much pressure are you under to
Yeah.
make sure there's cash available when these things are ready to open their doors?
Yeah, so sometime in the fall, and I don't know an exact date or time frame, we want to start to open the first hubs. So that is where the time pressure comes from. Ideally, we can do 5 with 100 spaces of supportive housing. We are working to land those pieces. I would say we have the capacity to get a good way to those 5 with the existing funding and capacity that we have. We need a little bit more this year. For the remaining, let's say, 7 to 10 hubs that we need, those are going to be actual formal asks in Ontario Budget 2024 and the Federal Budget 2024, where we can make specific asks, having already kind of started the process and having a much clearer picture.
So I'm going to get the audience to think of questions for the mayor now. I'll ask him one more follow-up, and then I'll turn things over to you guys. About the hubs, there is some concern about centralization versus decentralization.
Yep.
A lot of good work is being done right now, a lot of visioning, but at the end of the day, these are going to have to go in neighborhoods. And where are you on this idea of should we centralize them around the downtown and where the problem is primarily located right now, or do we need to decentralize these to different parts of the city?
I think that question can be divided into 2 pieces. So for the initial group of hubs, a level of decentralization is, I think, necessary for the success of the hubs because, again, the hubs are meant to serve a 25 to 35 people. And so we need them spread out from each other because they're not meant to be like grouped together and operate like as 2 hubs beside each other, or it's really just one bigger hub. So there needs to be a geographic distance between them to allow them to work in the way that they're intended. Where those are is a function of the engagement and the parameters that we set around where they would be placed. I also think it would be very risky to drop a service for 25 to 30 people in an area where you have 200 people who need the service. Like that is going to be a recipe for not achieving success with initial hubs, which we really want to do with the initial ones. So I think that means decentralization will make the most sense. Again, these have been finally determined, but it's my perception based on the engagement of where I think things will head on these. And also, as we define this more, the hubs will be like they are healthcare facilities. Like there will be primary healthcare provided in these hubs. When you think about healthcare facilities in general, people generally see those as positives. And I'm not saying that means they're going to go in the middle of neighborhoods, like neighborhood subdivisions, but they will be geographically displaced to provide a variety of healthcare-based services and options to different parts of the city. And remember, the hubs may be specialized in some ways. There may be a hub for youth, right? And there may be a natural spot that hub for youth makes sense. There may be a hub there will be a hub for Indigenous population, and that it will be determined in part with our Indigenous partners. So I think it is really easy at this point to speculate and assume and project, and that's probably the least productive thing for people to do right now. What I would ask is wait, let us get a much clearer picture on what this looks like, and then give us all of your feedback, concerns, comments of support, what you like, what you don't like, when you know what you're commenting on.
All right, I'm going to look around, yeah. Maybe we will, we have a microphone, because I get to ask you questions pretty much almost every day. So let's hear what people want asked. Put up your hand if,
Questions over here? Get you to speak into this so we get you on the recording.
Okay, I'm very interested in the hubs and the thoughts around that, particularly that issue, all the issues are interrelated, mental health, addiction. I just came home from a trip to San Francisco where they're just getting over they have an unbelievable homelessness problem, and they're just slowly coming out of it. But my question is really, has this idea or this model of the hub been tested in other cities, similar size to London? Where did the idea come from? And was there input from professionals, say, particularly in mental health, who contributed to the plan or to this idea?
Yeah. So to answer that, let me talk about the group of people who actually designed the system. And I would say we worked very closely too. There's another city that is along a very similar trajectory as us, and that's Kingston. Mayor Patterson and I worked very closely together at the Ontario Big City Mayors on the mayor's general strategy across Ontario for this, which actually mirrors the work that we're doing here, because the design of these hubs is considered something that works, that is a best practice, and has brought together with the design of the London hubs. The people who are working on this are frontline service providers who have been experiencing on a daily basis and understand what people are experiencing, what the variety of their needs are. It also has people from mental health practitioners who are in there. The hospital systems, both CEOs have been involved directly, as well as some of their key staff. I would say on LHSC, they have a keen interest in two parts of this. One is the idea that they might be able to provide primary health care in a decentralized way across the city to populations, and two, as a research hospital, the desire and capacity to bring research resources to studying the impacts and effectiveness of the hubs so that we can make changes in as near real time as possible through that research partnership. So they're involved in the design of the hubs as well, and would be involved in some of the leadership tables. So we're bringing in health professionals and experts from a variety of the service agencies who provide the services, but also people who know how to combine and put together healthcare services with experts in, we have some members of the business community, we've got city staff, we've got, we even had some representatives from ministries and other municipalities listening in. But the idea here is to use best practices, research, methodology that works, and design something that works for a city of our size, that is scalable, that is flexible, that can move in real time, and that has the right focus on impacts. Like for me, success is not like, yay, we built a hub, like great, like we're done, good job. The impact and the success is based on, is it actually helping people in the way that we intended to help? Are we, gaining ground on the homelessness challenge in our city? Are people having better health outcomes? Are people having better housing outcomes? So, I'm not going to stand up and say, hey, we built 5 hubs this year, success, because success actually comes in the second phase. And so organizations like LHSC, who have the research and knowledge capacity, as well as our educational institutions in the ways that they partner to measure and provide real-time data and feedback on our success to make those modifications, I think is critical. So that's not me. So as much as I'd love to tell you all of that stuff, that is not my area of expertise. And I think, as we move forward in this, their voices and their the way that they're able to talk about the work is going to become more important for the public to hear, for those who want to understand the actual services being provided and how they integrate and work with each other. It's going to be their voices that are going to be more important than mine.
I have one easy question and one hard question. Okay. The easy question is just a yes or a no. Are the hubs to service only homeless populations, so you have to be homeless in order to access them? Because there's such a high, is that true? Is that a yes?
There was a, sorry,
to access a hub,
yeah.
Do you have to be homeless? Because we have so many high needs families in the city which need more services for sure. And my fear would be that 25 to 30 people serviced at a hub effectively. Hopefully they're all the homeless population, so we make progress on that one issue. So will there be some criteria to say you need to be homeless to access these hubs?
Yeah, so I don't know the specific long-term answer to that because we do want to be flexible, but the intent here is to assist with the homelessness challenges that we have. Now, this is not to the expense or collapse of all of the other services that we have in the city that we need to have. And also, this is not ignoring the general affordability challenges that we have with rents and home ownership in the city. So think about this as not the solution to the affordability problem or other challenges that we have in the city. We are working parallel on those. This is specifically geared to around, we have 2,000 people who are on our by name list who do not have a stable place to live. Some of those people will get help from our general work on providing housing and affordable housing and subsidized housing and rent geared towards income housing in the city. But there are others, the highest needs individuals who are homeless on the street, who you cannot put in a home and expect them to be successful.
For sure, and I just hope that that's true. Like, I would hope that the hubs cater to the 2,000.
Yes.
Because
well,
if we don't, there'll be
the
there's so much need in the city across many levels that I would hate to see. You want to see all people supported, but if the vision and intent is to meet that challenge, hopefully there's some criteria that allows that part to be successful.
Yeah, well, the supportive housing is targeted more so towards the 600 that I talked about, the highest needs. We have seen over the years, like, completely unsuccessful housing experiments. In our housing corporation, we have seen people be put in a home without proper supports, and what usually happens is they leave that home, and the corporation is stuck with a large repair bill on the unit because they didn't know how to take care of a house. We take for granted where people may be at in their capacity. Now, for some, again, many people, like, they need shelter, they need affordable shelter. It's a financial question for them. For others, it is, challenges beyond financial, and so the system we're building, if you can help the highest needs individuals, and you can give them a place instead of on our streets or in our parks or in encampments, there is going to be such a changing catalyst with the way that the city feels and the ability of us to provide other services and other opportunities if we can just help those highest needs. When St. Thomas opened 15 spaces in their Indwell facility, and they targeted the highest needs, the people who were always, multiple times a month consuming healthcare services, multiple interactions with the police, issues with addictions, and put them into those units with a multi-year program approach. Like Mayor Preston told me, the feel on the street was completely different, right? People were getting proper supports really works. So that's really what the hubs are designed to do. Let's help the highest needs, highest acuity, like that's where they're focused.
I feel like Phil Donahue. Does anybody remember Phil Donahue?
It seems like every couple weeks we're reading about another school that is over capacity, dealing with twice as many kids they're supposed to have. Can you talk a little bit about sort of the interaction between the city and the Ministry of Education in terms of how we can perhaps better plan so it's not always reacting to overpopulation, that we're planning for it a little bit better?
Yeah, so it's really less an interaction between us and the minister and more an interaction between us and the school board and supporting their advocacy with the ministries, because I could tell you the school boards who manage this issue and have their own elected officials and their own general authority within the space, They understand the challenges that they're facing. Like it's not their desire to have schools like Sir Arthur Currie, which at one point had 22 portables and as many kids outside as they had inside. My wife is actually the principal of St. Catherine of Siena right now, and that is a school that I think originally built for 500 that has almost 1,000 students, right? So there was tremendous pressure in those neighborhoods with those schools that have that. And the interaction with the city is on our infrastructure. So we get complaints, the traffic around the school is horrible during drop-off. Yeah, that's because the streets were designed for schools with 500 people, not 1,000. And so that volume of traffic just is not functional for that piece of time. So we work closely with them to try to find solutions to that. But ultimately, the solution is building schools of the proper size, working with the city on the projections of where the population will grow, rather than schools that meet the need of the day. Because for too many years, schools were built to say, okay, there's enough students to justify a school, take them out of the portables, put them in a new school, ignoring all of the growth that was going to happen from that point on. So I think the way that schools are funded needs to change so that you build schools that actually have some capacity to accommodate the projected growth. But that is an advocacy piece that the school board is doing that I'm happy to support on the public side. I have to be careful on the Catholic side because my wife works in the Catholic system, so I've talked to the Integrity Commissioner about what I'm allowed to do. There are spaces that I can operate it within and spaces I can't, but on the public side, the city can be very supportive of the advocacy piece with the province. But ultimately, there are some decisions of the province that can really help with this. And I get what they're doing when they look at the board as a whole. And they're saying some schools are full, some schools are half full, move the students between them. That's a nice thought on a large scale, but for parents who live almost walking distance to the school and then their kids are getting bused 35 minutes somewhere else, like that is not what parents expect from their education experience. And if we have that level of population with that many students, like we need the proper facilities of the right size. Some portables make sense. You want to be able to flex without creating, infrastructure that is unnecessary or will go unused. But the challenge of having the right size in the right place at the right time, I don't think it's not landing in the right way right now.
So we have time for a couple of other questions. Two more?
I'm just wondering, on more of a lighter note,
Woo. Yeah.
as a politician, if you could have dinner with anybody, dead or alive, we've all heard this question before, who would it be and why, and what would the dinner be?
I would like to have, so let me say this. I once had lunch with Chris Hadfield because I was chair of the London Public Library Board and he was the keynote speaker and our library board CEO was the chair of the conference. And so I got to sit at a table with them. And I had one of these really, really early Samsung smartwatches before watches were actually smart that could take pictures. And I asked if I could take a picture of them. And I put my watch up and I snapped a photo on my watch. And he said to me, he's like, "You could take a photo on your watch?" And I said, "Yeah, they don't have that in space." And then he laughed at me, and then his son was like, "Oh, that was a good burn." But my conversation with him was so fascinating to hear his perspective of having been in space, his perspective. So what I would like to do, if I had to pick someone, is now that we have an astronaut from our region going to the moon, Jeremy, his last name's escaping me at the moment.
Don't look at me.
Yeah, Hansen, yeah. Like, that would be, like, maybe I'd want to have it after he goes. But, like, maybe he goes first and then we have, like, lunch or dinner. And, I would love to hear how that experience changed his perspective of how he views life on Earth, the challenges that we have, the differences we have, and how they might seem a lot smaller when you're that far away, from our home where, billions of us live, and it's then a dot, in your window. That would be a pretty cool conversation to have. What we would have to eat, where we would go, I don't think I have an answer for that. I'd have to brainstorm.
Dried up space food.
My favorite food? I I like breakfast. I like breakfast for any meal. So I'd probably go to up in my ward. One of my favorite places is the Singing Chef. They've got a nice family-owned business, and they do a great job with eggs Benedict. So I'd take them there or some other breakfast place. I like eggs and toast any time of the day. Yeah.
One last question from up in the cheap seats here.
I enjoyed the discussion about the arts earlier, so my questions around the arts and the creative industries. And one of the reasons why I'm settled in London and stayed here was because of the vibrant arts community. But I also went back to school a couple years ago at Fanshawe and studied filmmaking and met all kinds of young people, graduating in the creative industries, both at Western, OE Art, and Fanshawe. And they want to stay in London. They're either from here or they've come here, and they want to be a part of it, but they're leaving, right? They're going out to places where those industries are thriving more so. And I'm just wondering if you have, it sounds like you network a lot with the other, municipalities. Are there exemplar communities that you think are doing things that London could be doing? I know we're doing a lot already, but what more could we be doing in that area to kind of...
In the creative arts space, you mean? Like
general,
wide-ranging creative arts space? Or?
Yeah, in general. I mean, I'm interested in the film industry and sort of digital media and that sort of thing, but in general, I guess.
So I think with creative industries, there's always like centers of gravity that people project. And so like large urban centers like Toronto, where there's diversity and many things happening for film and other things, like there will be this attraction to, especially in the film, like the streetscapes and varieties they might have there. But I think with the development of our film office, what we've been able to show is like, even if like people are filming in Toronto, they only have so much capacity, and so we get the advantage of having like some really great secondary locations, and now have emerged a little bit as like a primary thought, like a top of mind place. So that took like time, effort, and a little bit of collaboration with the people who are doing it well to try to build up our own industry. On City of Music, our UNESCO designation, we haven't even come close to realizing, I think, the potential of what that can do for creative arts, because we are part of a network of, I think, 59 global cities that have this focus, and then there are other creative cities beyond that. But when you get to like be part of that network and talk to places like Austin and others about what they're doing with music, and then say, ooh, those are some good ideas that maybe we could bring here. I think early on to create the catalyst, we've got to talk to the centers of gravity and bring some of their best practices and ideas here, and then grow it, organically with the right structures and supports. So I think a film office, a music office, having those kind of base level supports here, having educational and professional institutions that have, good solid programs, and are willing to keep them and promote them, and then the cross collaboration between them, I think can help grow, can grow that organically here. And then when you talk about film and music, those are just two pieces. But once you start to create, I think, a creative space, like then you become a bit of a center of gravity for some of the other creative arts. And so I think we're on the verge of being able to do that in a meaningful way, because we put the proper structures in place that can support it. So, Andrew Dodd knows more about, my conversation, he knows more about like the film industry. I learned more from him than I knew, like having had an interest in maybe being in the film industry when I was at Sheridan. I learned more from him in one lunch meeting than I knew about the film industry total. So having those sorts of knowledge pieces in our city are tremendous assets. We just have to make sure we utilize them well. Now, before you cut me off, I want to say there's been very great questions here, but I have to tell you a funny story. This is not the only place that I've been answering questions this week, and so I've been going to grade 5 classes, and I even went to a kindergarten class. And I want to say the last grade 5 class I went to was just grilling me with questions. In fact, one young man put up his hand, and his question was, "What's your outlook on inflation?" And I said, "Excuse me?" He said, "What's your outlook on inflation? It's an economic question." And I was like, "Oh, I know it's an economic question." I was like, "I have an economics degree, and I'm likely to dive way too deep into this." And so I said, how many people here know what inflation is? And he and I put up our hand, and no one else did. And I was like, okay, so let me step back. But I love the questions today. I love the questions that I got from some of the youth in our community. And I think, it really reminds you of people always talk about cynicism or people aren't involved, but like when I talk to the youth in those classes, they had questions on, you know, racism, traffic, transportation, green bins, the environment, the economy. Like honestly, they were, and I'm not taking any offense to Daryl, but some of the all candidates debates, which weren't run by the media, they were better questions than I got in the election campaign at some of the debates I was at. Like, so that gives me tremendous confidence in like where we're headed as a city to have, you know, people that young primed and thinking about our city and the challenges we have in that way. I got questions on homelessness, I got questions on addictions, I got questions on support for different diverse communities. Like, they were like tough, hard-hitting questions from people in grade 5. That gives me tremendous confidence in where our city will go as that group. And we have to do whatever we can to encourage them to continue engaging with leaders in the way that they are. I loved your questions today, but I get inspired whenever I do these things because it reminds me that the public has a genuine interest and already a solid knowledge base in and opinions on what we need to do, where we need to go, and hold our leaders to account to remind us of the things that matter and ground us. So long-winded, like,
that
answer to
sounds
no
like
question.
the perfect ending. Thank you so much. London Mayor Josh Morgan. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.
And thank you to Daryl Newcomb from CTV News. Good job. Good job. And a quick thank you again to our sponsors, Dan Reason and the staff at Harrison Pensa, a full-service law firm that can assist with both business law and personal matters. Thank you very much, Dan. We appreciate it. The Forest City Film Festival, which runs October 14th to the 22nd. They've got a great website up and running. You can check out that. The team here at Huron University College for being sponsors. Thank you so much. Our season sponsor and exclusive educational sponsor. And Streaming Inc., Brian and his team, Ontario's first choice in virtual, hybrid, and classic in-person live event streaming. We thank you very much for that. I want to quickly, before you leave, remind you of our next event. It is coming up June 14th. It's going to be a virtual event at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It's an introduction to creating trans-inclusive spaces with Danny Gomez Ortega. Danny's a diversity, equity, and inclusion advocate with leadership roles in many organizations, including the Dignity Network Canada, where she advocates for LGBTQ rights globally. She'll explore the urgency of creating safer spaces for this large population and how you can help make this possible. It's going to be a very interesting event. Again, it's June 14th, so hopefully you can join us there. And finally tonight, we're going to do a brief post-reception across the hall in the Medline Students' Common area. You're welcome to join us for some light refreshments and some snacks. Again, thank you for coming. We appreciate it. Have a good night.